Welcome to the HR Champions podcast with me, Phil Scott of HR Recruit, where I bring to you leaders from the HR community. In our podcast, we'll be discussing their careers to date, their passion for HR, and the challenges they face along the way. Today, I'm delighted to introduce Lucy Graley, Executive Director of People and Business Services at RHP. Now, RHP have won a CIPD award very recently for Best L&D Initiative in 2020. I'm extremely interested to hear from Lucy and also what has been happening at RHP. So, Lucy, I'm going to ask you to do a quick introduction for yourself and tell the listeners who you are.
Thanks, Phil, and hi, everyone. My name's Lucy Graley. I'm the Executive Director of People and Business Services, and RHP is a social housing association based in southwest London. We have about 250 employees, but we like to think we're a little bit different and do things differently to keep making sure that we're better tomorrow than we are today. So our organisation has 4 key strategic aims, one which is around being the best customer service landlord that we can be in the UK. And so we have a really big focus on customer service, making sure that we're as good as what we can be, both in our sector and outside our sector. We have a real passion for building homes and looking after homes. As you can tell, we are a housing association. So really thinking about how we can support people who may be missed out. So people who are stuck in renting rooms off other people with parents because they can't get into the housing market. We have a strong value for money piece, because obviously as we are a social landlord, how we make sure we spend our money is really critical. And then all of this is absolutely wrapped around being the best employer we can be. And we have a real drive within our culture, within our organisation, led from the top, to really put people at the heart of what we do. And it really drives what RHP is and some of the things that we've been able to deliver as a result of that.
Thank you, Lucy. Now, let's start at the beginning of your career. Let's ask you how you first got into HR.
One of those flukes. So my degree was philosophy and theology. So my degree meant I could either go and become a lecturer or become a nun, and neither of those really appealed to me. So it was my first temping job from university was HR. It was doing TUPE from Sheffield City Council. They were outsourcing their housing department to become an Elmo. And my job was to sit and go through all of those employee files and redact out information that shouldn't be in there as part of that TUPE transfer. And from there, my career was kind of born into what the world of HR is, and I've grown up in it ever since, really.
What is it then that you like about working in human resources?
I think HR has that real unique insight into the business. It sees all of its warts and all, so it sees what goes really well, but it can also see things that are not. And you've got that ability to shape and influence what makes an amazing organisation, or what perhaps might hinder it. So you can get involved across the piece, you get to understand all different depths of the business, but more importantly, working with people and actually seeing what change and difference you can make and inspire people on a day-to-day basis, as well as helping those people who are going through some tough times, where they may not be in the right role, or they may be going through personal reasons, which means they can't live up to their full potential in that moment. And you get to work with people one-to-one, but also that wider organisation to really make change and success happen.
And your career has taken, some really steady progression. What's been your secret?
So I haven't been afraid to change sectors. So for me, I have worked in both local government, I've worked in professional services, I've worked in not-for-profit and now in the housing. And it's been about what jobs can give you that experience and exposure to a whole range of different things, different cultures, that allows you to experience things in different ways, get to see how different things work, and not be afraid to make that change. I have a desire for keep seeing how I can transform things and moving things forward. And I think that's also given me that drive to change and keep progressing through my career as well.
And have there been any standout achievements that have stood you in good stead?
I think there was one at an organisation, a charity called Cystic Fibrosis Trust, where I had the ability to join both HR with technology, with facilities, as we did an office move. And it's probably one of the strongest things that I've been able to do is look at HR in the round of work. So that includes things like the facilities, the communications, the technology that people use, and use a change program to really significantly shift forward the culture on the back of it. So we moved from just outside London into central London, which is kind of against the norm of what people do. But being able to lead it from a HR, from a people perspective, we really drove that forward to create great culture change, which aligned people back to the purpose of the charity with what we were doing. And on the back of that, we got far better engagement. We got things like investors in people, which we'd never had before. And it was a real moment of change by being able to use a change program to shift forward culture.
And as an individual, are you the sort of person that just sort of sticks to your function, or do you get involved with wider organisation initiatives?
I don't think HR can just stick to its silo function. And I think when I see HR working really well, it's got that curiosity, it's got that insight, it wants to go and see what's going on across the business. It wants to understand it from the business perspective first, because then you can really unlock people change, because you're talking business language, you're getting the priorities of the business, you're getting the sticking points of the business, and then you can unlock it through people. So I think you have to be curious and really go and experience all different bits of the business and get to know it in order to be a really effective HR practitioner.
And talk me through then some of RHP's recent sort of awards and sort of recognitions.
So I think sometimes people look at RHP and think you're just going after the awards. I think the awards are for us just an external verification of if we're doing things right. So it's kind of like the icing on the cake for us. We've been driving over the last 18 months a strategy around employee personalisation. So actually trying to take the rule book of current HR and throw it away and start again and think about what's going to actually help you as an individual really unlock your potential, make sure that that works for our customers, and then also the business overall. So looking at how we can personalize things more to support individuals in the moment to deliver the business objectives. And that's kind of where some of our awards have come from, both in terms of our leadership development program, but also work that we've been doing on things like Your Work, Your Way, flexible working, and trying to move forward the agenda. The latest award that you mentioned was for our program called Luminous. This is our leadership development program, and it came out of a need to help our managers grow their skill set, grow their leadership skills in quite a changing environment, and bring to life that personalisation strategy. It was a program developed in-house by two L&D trainers led by the wonderful Chloe Marsh. And for me, it's been a program that's had rocketing success across the business. So the program has picked up both senior leaders, it's picked up middle managers, and it's picked up aspiring leaders. And it's created a program of activity that runs across and supports the business priorities each quarter. So it will pick up a variety of activities on a basis. We do very short sessions, so no training session will be more than 2 hours, but they can be very different. So we can bring in external trainers to support us, or we may do something like bring in an escape room because we want people to use that, develop their problem solving skills, or we may do a lunch and learn or bring in external speakers. So the whole program is created around a variety of methods to help people engage with learning and develop their own skill sets as a result. And because of this program, we've seen a significant step change in how our managers are coaching people. We're getting that feedback and engagement surveys. We're seeing people now progress within the organisation because they develop those skills. So we've got a real steady train of people growing within the organisation. And it's actually something now people are going out externally talking about. And we hear when people come and recruit for us, they've heard about what this program can do for them. The icing on the cake is that it's assured by the City and Guilds. So our people can also be really proud of these skills and take them externally and shout about them. And we can really see that return on investment coming back in through a homegrown program.
And your CEO was recognised back in 2016 by Personnel Today for being the most people-focused CEO of that year. I mean, how important is it to work for a CEO who is very sort of HR-led and people-focused?
It's fundamental to unlocking what we do. So I've worked in a variety of organisations, and whilst HR can be paid lip service to, and people go, yes, HR is important, people are important, it often comes under the strategic element after finance. Whereas what I would say in RHP is, of those 4 strategies that was pillars that I was talking about earlier, all of them are equally aligned, and actually the people aspect is more important sometimes than the finance. So I'm not really challenged on actually what am I putting in my budget this year. I do get challenged on ROI, but actually people want to make sure that there is good availability in there to engage with people, to make sure our employees feel supported, to make sure that they are able to do what they need to do, because we then absolutely get that's what delivers the best customer service to our clients at the end of the day. So it's absolutely led from the top. Our board are very committed to it as well. And it's actually one key focus that we keep coming back to see how we're doing and making sure that we are doing the best that we can for our people. And it's absolutely led by from the CEO at the top.
So, I mean, it's been a bit of a strange year. I mean, back in March, obviously the landscape changed with COVID-19. What sort of support have you been putting in place to help people with, say, remote working?
For us, it's been a really interesting challenge. So our culture has been built around people being in the same space, being in an office, and we've got really modern offices. And it was kind of a real pride moment that we could bring people together, we could do engagement activities, create a real sense of fun within the organisation. And then suddenly within a week, you're having to then completely change that nuance around how our culture is built to get everyone to be home working. And I think the one thing we know is our values are really strong that runs through the organisation. We recruit people primarily for values, and our people stepped up to the mark. So they were prepared to make that change. And within 48 hours, we had pretty much everybody home working who could be home working. And the level of support and engagement that I've seen coming through has been phenomenal across the teams. So we had a Yammer as quite a strong platform anyway. That's up the ante. We'd started to introduce Microsoft Teams to connect people. That's completely now a way of working. And I'd say within a month, our people had adapted to working from home. But we've been really clear as an executive group that throughout all of this, mental well-being has been paramount. So we had some things in place like Mind Matter Champions. But again, we've looked at how we can support people adapt to this change. So very visible from the executive crew about talking about how they've been feeling, about how it's impacted them. Very clear that we've been saying to people, take time off, encouraging people to use their leave throughout the year to make sure they've got that break from screen time. We've also been really flexible in terms of a lot of the HR policies and actually stood a lot of them down just to make sure that our people could focus on what mattered most, which was keeping them, keeping their families, and keeping those around them safe. So the motto has been very much throughout this about keep customers safe, keep employees safe, and that's been our primary focus. In some ways, it's really helped us because it's helped us advance some of our flexible working and helping people realise they could work from home, recognising that they don't have to be wedded to the desk 9 to 5, that they can move things around. We have relaxed down things such as how people deal with children and childcare, and actually, again, the focus has been very clear. It's about your family, keep your family safe, do what you need to do, and then we as an organisation will support and move things in the background. We have also then looked at actually how can we use people in different ways across the organisation as work has ebbed and flowed. So again, we've started to try and move away from job descriptions and job roles, and that's what it is, and actually start thinking about, well, where is the priority need within the business, and can we move people to help support across different teams as the pandemic's unfolded and we've needed to prioritise in different ways. There's lots of different initiatives that's come into play, but I think the feedback that we've had from employees is communication has been clear, they get what they needed to do, and they felt supported. So for me, over this period, that's been the absolute big win that we've had from it, if you can say that there's been a win during this period.
And you mentioned, was it Mind Matter Champions? For those that don't know what that is, can you explain
Mental health first aiders. So we've trained people, we have had a lot of people trained in mental health first aid. Again, they've been paramount in keeping some of those conversations going during this period, and picking up on the conversations of it's okay not to be okay. So really recognising where people are and how they're feeling about this, giving people the space to go, actually, I'm not okay today, and what can I do about it? Signposting to people, lots of other things and different initiatives that we have signed up to as well to make sure that people have had access to different counselling, people they can talk to, and anything else that they may need during what is a period that none of us would have expected.
And you mentioned leadership earlier on. I mean, just anything sort of to add on the leadership programs at RHP?
We are now combining this program, so it's going into year 2 now. It's now running in tangent, and they are linked together with our customer service program. So as I mentioned, customer service is one of our key strategic aims. So we're wanting to make sure that whatever we do on the leadership is absolutely complemented by what we're doing on our customer service training. So we now have a new program called Stella, and Stella complements Luminous. You'll see there's a bit of a light theme going on, so that people can absolutely see that what we're asking them to do on their outside skill set is then supported by what their leaders are going through as well.
And what other initiatives have you guys sort of launched?
I think that for us, Your Work Your Way has been a cornerstone of trying to get people to think about work differently. It was initially launched as part of flexible working, but it's now become a bit more around the people strategy around actually how do you unlock potential and how do you unlock the best for people. So we are now looking at how our inclusion strategy works alongside that. So actually, one of our values is real, and how you can be your real self and bring who you are to work into the table. So that therefore it really influences how people work and making sure we're being personalized and helping people bring their best self to the table as well. So it's quite interesting how different things have rolled out through the year, how actually they all interlink, and it's actually about unlocking potential for people and really helping people be who they are, but really supported, encouraged, and enabled to be their successful selves as part of this.
Okay, a little bit about yourself then. So I'm going to ask you some questions. I'm going to start with one of my favourites. Who are 3 people that have been the most influential to you?
So one is from my Grant Thornton days, and it's a lady called Mel Wunwell, who, if she's watching this, will hopefully recognise herself. And she brought to me a whole different concept of HR in terms of bringing neuro-linguistic programming skills into what was a professional services organisation. And as part of that, she unlocked a whole different way of how I thought about things, how I recognized how people could think, how they would think differently to me, how their view of the world would be very different, and therefore what I could do, what was in my control to do things differently. And I think that set me on a whole different HR path to probably some of the more traditional HR paths that people could have gone down. So that was my first very influential person. I think, secondly, this is somebody on a broader scale, is around Richard Attenborough. And for me, that's somebody who keeps trying to challenge and do things differently. So he's in his 90s. And I mean, you think that's got to be amazing, isn't it? Like the passion and the power that he's got there, but also the clarity of message and how he has, for the last couple of years, really transformed how we do things and think about things. And again, that's influenced me in my workplace around what type of communications am I giving out? How clear is that message, but also how much energy and passion do you put behind it to do things differently? And then the last person is my very first manager, a lady called Julie Graley, who was my HR manager, who showed me what it was to be a manager and how you could actually stretch people and help people think differently by trusting them in the outset. And I think trust is such a primary point of HR and actually how you work, that for me was then really influential, that if I can actually do anything to unlock anybody, the first step is trusting them.
Some excellent answers there. Next question, as a leader, who do you learn from? What personal development do you do?
I think you have to learn from everyone you meet. I don't think there is any one set thing, because actually everybody you meet has such a different way of looking at the world that there is a nuance that you could pick up that you may have missed before. So one of the things for me is constantly looking at situations, how things are done, how people have worked in that, how they behaved in those situations, and what can you learn from them, what can you take forward. I'm currently doing my coaching qualification, and I think for me that's, again, it's taking my NLP a bit further forward, and again how you can work with people to really unlock their own potential. It's the start of that journey, and I think if anyone out there has done their coaching, you just begin to realize there is a whole box of tools and techniques out there that you can really learn from, that you can then bring back into the workplace and also your own life to really make a difference.
Good. NLP, that's a fascinating subject in itself. For anyone that doesn't know what that is, it's definitely worth looking at. So another question then, have you faced any setbacks in your career, and if so, how did you overcome them?
I don't think I've ever really told anyone this, but my very first job that I ever had, I got fired from. And I think it's a very interesting experience to be fired. So it was when I was 16, and I was a Saturday girl in a hairdresser's, and it just wasn't for me. It just wasn't my skill set. I'm very clumsy with my fingers. And so I was dropping things, or I'd soak people if I was washing their hair. And you look back on it and you go, it's no surprise that they asked me not to come back one Saturday. But when you then take that and you look at it and you go, actually, there are some jobs that are absolutely right for people, and there are some jobs that are not. And some of the greatest lessons you can learn is that's not my skill set, and that's okay. And then how you can learn from that and take it forward. I wouldn't say that was like my greatest setback, but I think it's certainly one that sticks in mind when I'm going through things and go, actually, square peg, round hole. That was definitely a moment.
Fair enough. If I see you with a pair of scissors in your hands, I'll move away sharply.
Definitely run.
Okay, and is there one common myth about your profession that you'd like to debunk?
I think people like to think it can be that tea cake and just a nice conversation, but actually when we get it really right, we can drive an organization forward to its successes in ways that people don't know. So I think I hate that conversation. Should HR be at the top table? I think it's such a ridiculous conversation in this modern day. Absolutely. And in fact, why isn't it the CEO? And I think it's that challenge that we should be putting out to each other, that actually, you know what? Organizations work because of the people within them.
Absolutely. And have you made any mistakes? And have you got any advice for people so they don't make those mistakes?
I think having had a few different roles in different organizations, is you have a real opportunity in those first few months when you join an operation to set the scene, but also to really learn. So whilst you want to come in and all guns blazing and show that you're capable of doing stuff, there are so many unwritten rules in an organization, there are so many barriers in organizations that you may or may not be aware of, that actually just taking that opportunity to just listen and learn is really important. I know certainly one of my jobs that I went in and tried to make some sweeping changes within the first 3 months, and it just doesn't work because you don't get the depth of what's going on there. So taking people on that change journey, really, you can't do it because you haven't heard some of the bits that you need to hear. So I think my advice to people is, if you are somebody who does move into different jobs, just take that opportunity to be a sponge and really just listen. And actually, there will be so many unseen rules that you're not aware of. The more you can get to know them quicker, the more effective you will be later on.
And what advice would you have for anyone who wants to get to where you've got to?
I think where I am now and where I'm talking to a lot of people about is that as HR professionals, we have to get to grips with technology and data quicker. And actually, we have to see it as a real strong area for us and a skill that we need to have. So if we can't get to understand how systems and processes work, we're never going to design amazing jobs or create amazing ways of working for people, or even help people evolve in the long term. And data now is absolutely critical. So what I would say is, if you get that opportunity in your organization to get to know what's going on in the technology world, to get to know what's going on in the data world, or even sharpen any of your skills in that area, grab it with 2 hands, because it's going to be how HR has to change in the long run.
Okay, and other than HR and hairdressing, what other profession, if you weren't doing HR, would you look at?
I think for me, it is technology, and I think I've always gone, why didn't I go into technology? I find it fascinating, and I think because it's just how it can change so many things. So I probably would have gone down the technology route, but what I have been able to do now is merge the two together. So I have both HR and technology now under my remit, and for me that unlocks so much potential, because you're both looking at the job design, how you engage people, but then absolutely how people work to deliver their outcomes as well. So yeah, I think I would have probably gone down the technology route and might be a very different person.
Fair enough. And I mean, that's 20 minutes or so has gone in a flash. But if anyone wants to reach out to you, what's the best way of doing that? I
would love to hear from anybody. So you can find me on LinkedIn. I'm also on Twitter, but a slightly different handle because it was my maiden name before I changed it. So it's Semmons41. But please find me on LinkedIn, or otherwise you can email me at my work. So it's lucy.graley@rhp.org.uk.
Okay, well, a massive thank you to Lucy Graley for helping us with this episode of the HR Champions podcast. I hope everyone listening has enjoyed that, and stay tuned for more episodes.